still small voice
Hey
cries out to
everyone,
my
it's
soul.
MK. Welcome back to MK Quilts. Hey, it's been a while since I've done a video, and I saw a question on the Pro Stitcher Posse the other day, and it had to do with what the question what was a workspace? How do you save with it? Why is it saving that way? What's a project file? And it was just basically a series of questions surrounding that. So I thought I would hop on today and give you my 2 cents about the matter. And I know that some of you are visual learners, so I like doing these videos because I know you like to be able to review them and pause them as many times as you want. But I did want to let you know that a lot of times some of the questions that are answered could be found in your Pro Stitcher manual. Now, Handy Quilter does not ship those printed manuals with our systems anymore. And also, Handy Quilter has been working on a little bit of an upgrade, a new look to their website. So I thought I would start this video just by showing you the new homepage at handyquilter.com. And if you want to find those manuals, where you can look on the new site is under Resources and User Manuals. Here's all the manuals for the various machines and whatnot. But if you come on down here, you're going to get to this section for Pro Stitcher. You can click on that, and then here is the user reference guide. And if you open that, this long 158 page file will open up. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a commercial break right here and let you know that if you don't want to print this on your own, eat up your own ink and paper at home, we do offer print services here at MK Quilts. You can hop over to mkquilts.com, go to our product store, and then there is print service tab within that section, and there's all different kinds of materials that you can order. We use a very good print source, and he will offer 3-hole punch or comb bound materials. You just order up what you want. The order comes to me. I forward it to him. He ships it to you. He does really good work, and so check that out if you don't want to print out 158 pages on your home printer. Okay, so the next thing about the manual is you can go ahead and search through this manual, or you can save it onto your computer. I'm going to show you on my computer. I'm just working on a Windows laptop. If I do an Alt E, so that's Alt E on my keyboard, and then the letter F for find, a little box opens up here, and you can just go ahead and search for keywords throughout this manual. Okay, so the first one that I want to show you really quickly is to talk just loosely about file type. So I typed in the search box file type, hit enter, and it brings us down here to page 18 in the manual. And it talks about the different file formats in general that you can use with your Pro Stitcher, or that Pro Stitcher saves or recognizes. Okay, so a little bit about file types here on page 18. If we go up and search for the word workspace, there's many references to workspace in this document. Okay, so all I'm doing after I did the Alt E and F, so that's Alt Edit Find, and typed in workspace, is I'm just hitting enter on my keyboard, and it's going through and finding in this document any reference to the word workspace. Okay, but what I really wanted to show you with regard to workspace is on page 22. So let me just scroll down here to page 22. And what you're going to see on here is a little bit of explanation about saving files. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, you're going to find information about open, close, save, workspace, and the like. Okay, there's a couple of short pages there about saving workspace, but why don't I jump over into Pro Stitcher and give you just a few hints and tips as far as working with designs, working with workspace, and also working with something called projects. All right, so really simply, let's just first start out with designs, okay? When we do a design open, we can decide where we're going to save those designs, I would recommend that you take your designs folder from your tablet and manually copy that over onto your computer. And of course, when you're running simulation, then you've got those designs at your fingertips. You can also install flash drives. That's what I have here on my computer today. Of course, I am running simulation on my laptop. So I've got my designs in my Seed Designs folder, and I also have a flash drive inserted today. Okay, so down here at the bottom, you're going to see several different file type, right? These are file extensions that ProStitcher is looking for. So right now I am pointed at the C folder on my hard drive. If I go down to designs, you're going to notice a couple of things. First of all, I have got a separate file folder under that designs folder named MK Purchase Designs. In that folder is where I keep everything that I purchase online. Down here a little bit further are a couple of just temporary folders that I have created along the way as I've been working with my QPI product. Not going to talk about QPI today, but just remember that is a product of MK Quilts, stands for Quilt Pattern Indexer. And if you have amassed thousands of patterns like I have, you're going to want to get that piece of software. But we'll save that for another day. Okay, down here further under the C Designs library on my C drive here on my computer, I have all of the file folders that came with my ProStitcher, right? All of those free designs that we get with our system. So let's just go up to the top one just to kind of keep it simple for today. So if we look under the Anita Shackelford file, you're going to see all of the designs that are under her folder. Now, a lot of people ask me about why these designs show up in different colors. Okay, so there are different colors related to the different file types. If you're looking at a green file, that means it's an HQV file. Okay, so if I turn off all of the other pattern type formats, you're going to see that there's only HQV files in this folder, okay? And that's how they come now from Handy Quilter. If your file formats are in a different color, it could indicate that you just haven't updated your designs file in a while, okay? So along the way with Handy Quilter updates that they've been doing over the last year or two, they have been converting over most of their patterns to this HQV, which stands for a vector file, so that they can have this commonality in their designs, okay? So if you have some that are not green, at some point it may be a good idea for you to make sure that your ProStitcher is up to date and get that brand new designs library off your tablet and copy it over here so that you've got the most current versions, okay? All right, so I'm just going to highlight those again, and then let's just go ahead and open up a design. There it is. If that's the design that we were working with, we may be on our quilt and we're working with this design, and maybe at our quilt we are doing some multi-point marking. Okay, so you have to use a little bit of your imagination today. I'm working from simulation, but maybe you were working at your machine and you're just playing with this block doing some multi-point marking. You're going to go ahead and skew that, and you're going to skew it into position baseline. Now, if you follow MK's recommendation, you're always going to want to save something, especially if you have skewed it before you go to stitch it. All right, so let's pretend we're doing that. We're at our quilt, we've just skewed this block, and we're going to save it before we stitch. So if we go over to save, you're going to see a couple of different things, or 3 different things that we can save. If we save selected, and this is generally speaking what I do when I'm stitching at my quilt, because many times I'm just stitching one unit and then another unit and another unit. So let's assume that we are just stitching block to block, or pattern design to design, and we're just saving them one at a time as we go along. Okay, so we're going to hit save selected. We're going to decide where we're saving it, and for the purposes of this video, we will just pretend that we're going to save it onto our C drive on our laptop or on our tablet. That isn't generally how I do it. I don't like to save patterns onto my tablet, but just for today, let's pretend we're just going to save it on our tablet right into the same folder that we opened it from. Okay, so you're going to see down here there's two different file types. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The only file type that you can save to at this point, if you just want to save an individual single file that you have skewed, you might want to give it a different name. Maybe you would call it block 1 skewed. We're not going to talk about naming games today, but just pick a name and you're going to save it. Okay, so you just saved that file before you stitched it. Now, I'm going to take another just little commercial break. If you do a design open right now, you're going to see that there is the block that we just skewed. Now, here's the master block down here. That's the one we opened. That was the HQV file. But when we saved it, since we only had HQF as our option, it turned it to more of a gold color, right? That's an HQF file. Just to prove the point, if we turn off all of these other file formats and just tell ProStitcher to look for HQF files, there's the only one that we have in that folder because we just resaved it. Okay, so let's turn these back on. Let's just hit cancel. That was just to show you again how it saves it to a different file type, and as such it made it a different color. Okay, you would be ready to stitch right now. You would do Pro Stitch or Quilt, maybe check your settings, do tie-offs if you wanted, and whatever you wanted to do, and you would stitch this block. Okay, so very, very basic, simple, doing block to block type of an application as it relates to file type. Okay, let's hit stop. We're not going to watch that stitch out, and let's just do a clear all. All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about Workspace. Let's go back and let's open that same block. Now, when we're talking about Workspace in general terms, we're talking about what we're looking at on the screen. This is our workspace. As you're looking at it right now, we only have one thing open on the workspace. But there may be times, and in my world, there are several times in a day, where I'm working with multiple things open on my workspace at one time. Of course, you like to watch me with all my layout and rendering and all those projects that I post about. Those are all done on my workspace in simulation by having several things open all at once, all open on my workspace. Okay, if we look over here, we have also a workspace tab. Okay, if we click on the workspace tab, this is one of the features that when Premium was new, so that was in January of 2017 when this came out. When Premium was new and we had this workspace tab to keep track of everything that we had open at one time and be able to see it, oh my gosh, that was a game changer for me because I do so much of this layout and rendering, and as I mentioned, I have all of these things open at one time. It was so much easier having this workspace tab to see what I had open over here on the actual workspace. Okay, so right now we only have one item open, but let's say that we're going to open and play with multiple items on this workspace. Okay, so I'm going to open 3 different items all at the same time. Okay, and just to make the screen so that it's not so jumbled up, I'm going to grab them one at a time. All I'm doing here is click, hold, and drag, and then just release my mouse button, and I just dropped it over there. And this has nothing to do with anything other than I'm just trying to get them spread apart on the screen so that you can see them independently. Okay, so now over here on the workspace, you can see that we've got 3 totally independent items. What you're seeing on the screen now, you guys, is very much how I work with my layout and rendering. Okay, when I build my quilt layouts prior to stitching, I am doing a combination of opening designs, multiple designs at once. I'm building line drawings. I have a whole class on line drawings. But the point of the matter is I have several things open on my workspace. Okay, so let's talk about actually saving this workspace because sometimes, me included, maybe I'm not finished with it by the time I have to go home at night, okay? And so when I come back tomorrow after I've slept for a few hours, a very few in my case, right? After you come back and you want to continue working with this, you want these items to be listed independently on your workspace. Okay? So if you click on a small feather and you did a file save, if you did save selected, the only thing that you would be saving would be that little file, very much like what we just did. However, if you did save Workspace, what you're going to do is, again, make sure that you know where you're saving this. So I'm going to go ahead and save it on See Designs, and we were in Anita Shackelford. And I'm just going to call this test. Okay, it's just a practice. We're just doing a little bit of experimenting. So we'll just call it test. And we're going to hit save. Now, if I hit clear all, just temporarily, and I do a workspace open, and I make sure that I point myself at Anita Shackelford, there is the test workspace that I just saved. So that might be what I want to do the following day after I've rested for a while. I come back, I want to open that workspace. Well, there it is. And once again, just as review, that was under workspace, open, and make sure you know where you're going, and there it is. Now, a little side note. If this was the last thing that you worked on and you went to bed at night, you came back, it's most likely going to be on your history here of the items that you were previously working on, okay? But the long way through the matter is workspace open, point yourself where you saved it, there it is, and we'll click open. Now, what I want you to notice really quickly is that it opened all three of those designs, but it also has all three of them selected at the same time. Okay, let's come over here to Workspace and see what that looks like. So here are the three items, but when you open a workspace, it selects those items together in a grouping. Now, that might be what you want. You might want them at a grouping at this point, but you might not. So one of my biggest tips, you guys, if you start experimenting with saving these workspaces and coming back to them to make additional changes, is immediately after opening that workspace, come on over here, click the Workspace tab, come down here, look and see how many items are all open at the same time. See that little arrow key right there? If you just depress the arrow open and close, they still remain selected. If you open the selection box on this grouping and then you come down here and you hit deselect, now it takes that grouping away and it leaves you with just the individual items. Okay? If, however, let's do that one more time. If you open up the workspace, there we go. And if you immediately, just let me click on select, if you immediately go over here and start working with these units individually, that's completely acceptable, except for the fact that you end up having this grouping that is still open over on the Workspace tab. And sometimes, you guys, that if you forget that step to close this down, all of a sudden your workspace starts getting very, very jumbled and full and confusing, and there's a bajillion things open over here. And it's because you forgot to just come on over here, expand this grouping tab, and then come on over here and hit the select none. Okay, if you want to work with it as a grouping, well then you can keep it grouped and move on. I just find for the techniques that I am doing in my studio, I don't want to have them be a group when I open the workspace. I might want them to be a grouping later, but I'll take care of that later. When I open the workspace, I just want them to be opened individually. Okay? All right, let's talk about saving a project. Now, for those of you who are listening that used to run standard or maybe you're still running standard. There was a function in standard to save a project, okay? And basically, you guys, project and workspace are very closely related in premium. We can still save a project and we can save a workspace. They are very similar, but there are a couple of just differences that I want to show you. Okay, so we already saved this workspace. We've closed it and opened it a few times. So we know that this is saved as a workspace. But let's just pretend for a minute that we have been working on whatever we're working on the screen. Maybe you're at your quilt, maybe you're in simulation, whatever you've been working on. And rather than save all three of these items and save your workspace, for some reason, whatever that reason or scenario is, you want to save this file and that one together, but not necessarily with this one. So let's go ahead and click on our multiple select tool. Let's select that guy and that guy, but not that guy. And let's do a file save. We're going to save selected. And then we're going to look down here at the bottom. And you're going to see that we have two different options for saving this grouping, if I can call it that temporarily. We can save it as an HQF, or we can save it as an HQP. Let's experiment with both of these options. First of all, let's save it as an HQF. And instead of group 76, that's just the name that ProStitcher gave it. Let's click on that. Let's click clear. And let's just call this option 1. Okay, and we're going to save. Okay, let's just really quickly, let's deselect everything so that we don't have that grouping open, so that we don't get confused. So what I want to do before I open this, you guys, is I want to just go back over here and just clear everything, because I don't want us to get confused about what we just did. Now remember, we have that workspace saved that had all three items. But when we now go to Design Open and we look for option number 1, that's what we just saved, and we open it, now we've got a grouping, 2 designs open at one time. It looks like we have 2 designs open at one time, but when we go over onto the workspace, they are actually together. 2 have become 1. Okay, so we're looking at, even though it's 2 different designs, there's a jump in between. It's ProStitcher's looking at it as one unit. Now, in another video, I can show you how to crop these apart. That would absolutely be an option to isolate this one or isolate that one. We could do some cropping. That's not what we're talking about today. Okay, let's go ahead and clear all. So just so that you understand, we saved selected as an HQF. When we opened it, we had 2 designs open at once, but they have been made into a grouping. We've only got one name. Okay, clear all. Let's go back to our workspace and let's open back up that Anita Shackelford workspace. Here's the test. That's where all 3 of them were together. Let's follow what I just taught you. Go immediately to the workspace. You're going to see that it opened them all together selected. Let's just do a deselect. So now we just have the 3 individual blocks. Okay, let's do option number 2 where we're going to save this guy. So let's click multiple select. This guy and this guy. It's selected them. Let's do a file, save, selected. But this time we're going to save it as an HQP, a project. Okay, I don't want that name, so I'm going to clear. And let's just call this option 2. Okay, so now we've got these still open, they're still selected. Let's just go ahead and deselect all and let's actually clear all. Okay, so now let's see what we have when we do a design open. Here we are in our C Designs and Needle Shackelford. Now we have option 1 and we have option 2. It's a different color. So just to prove the point once again, you guys, about these file formats down here, let's turn off everything except that HQP file format. And you're going to see that HQPs are purple. And if we click on that and we click open, there are those same 2 files. Both of them are selected. But the difference over here on Workspace is now we have those items independently Okay, they're not grouped together as one design. They have maintained their individual status. Now, just like with Workspace, opening the project, open them as being selected together. That may or may not be what we want. For me, most of the time, it's not what I want. So I have forced myself to make that new habit to come over onto Workspace, see what is selected, and if I don't want it as a grouping at that point, I immediately come over here and do a select none. And now I have the units independent from each other and I can work with them one at a time instead of having had them be hooked together. Now, a tip. These select buttons down here are very, very useful. They're very handy. However, the multiple select tool, if you turn it on, you just have to remember that it's on. Because if you want to select just this little guy right here, it looks like it's selected, and then you might think, well, I don't want to select that one, I want to select this one. But if you select it, because you're on multiple select, it's selecting them together. So you just have to be aware of the fact that once you turn on multiple select, it's on until you turn it off. Okay, sometimes that just can be a nuisance to me because I get going so fast and I start selecting and then I realize I'm on multiple select and then I have to go back and, yada, yada, yada. But just know that once it's on until you turn it off. Okay, so we have covered saving a design independently. We have covered saving a workspace. That's going to save everything on your screen into a workspace. And we have covered saving a project. As you move along on your quilting journey, and if you start taking some of my classes, you will see me using a combination of these. What I can tell you for the most part is I am not using project as much as I am using just individual saving of units or groups and a combination of saving workspace. Okay, so a very powerful functionality that we never had in standard. We have it now in premium, and I hope that this video has given you a little insight into the differences in those three options. All right, you guys, that's it for this time. Until next time, from my studio to yours, it's MK. Happy quilting. Bye bye.